On today's show, we have an exclusive interview with Dan from MetalCore, and let me just tell you the Easter eggs he dropped in this interview, as well as all the dynamic gameplay modes and customization coming together. This one honestly looks so impressive. It's kind of like Call of Duty and Titanfall on steroids, and there's opportunities to get involved with their next closed beta. So without further ado, let's invite Dan onto the show. And here he is, the man of the hour from MetalCore, Dan from 369 Studios. Can you give us a little bit about your background and a bit about MetalCore itself?
Yeah, thanks for having me on. My name is Dan Nikolaides, and I've been making games for almost 20 years now. Got my start at Midway Games in Chicago back in like the early mid-2000s, working on games like Mortal Kombat, transitioned to independent studios and helped out Epic, working on Gears of War 3 and Fear 3 and a couple of other things. And then kind of did a foray into mobile games, VR games, have worked kind of a little bit in every kind of form of new cutting edge tech. And now just founded Studio 369 about almost 4 years ago now, actually, working on big, large-scale mech games. And that's what we've been doing. And MetalCore has been kind of our brainchild for a while, along with my two co-founders. Actually, our CEO, Matt Candler, got his start in the industry on MetalCore, or on MechWarrior 2. Yeah, so we have some pedigree of mech games in our history. And yeah, now we're making MetalCore, which is this large-scale open-world third-person, first-person shooter with infantry, tanks, aircraft, mechs, all in a giant open-scale battlefield.
Yeah, I've heard some people refer to it as kind of like Call of Duty in mechs meets Titanfall, open world, like all happening in your face at once. And like from what we've seen with the trailers and the initial closed beta, the 2.5 there, it's looking really impressive. So what would you say is the standout features from the community so far? What are you hearing the most positive things about?
Well, I think what the community loves the most about MetalCore is, a couple things. One, just that feeling of scale, of being able to run around. I mean, Titanfall had this too, right? Where you can run around on foot and then see these like massive mechs, just like 50, 60, 70 foot tall mechs just towering over you. And that we do really nail that sense of scale, I think. But the first time you see it like in person on the battlefield, it's really, really cool. And then that sense that like I could, like once I work my way up, I could be the pilot of that thing. And just completely dominate the battlefield, right? But yeah, I mean, and I think just the vibe of the game, the way we've set it up, it is a little bit unique amongst kind of these action multiplayer shooters in the sense that we are going for this hybrid MMO style feel with kind of a more traditional Call of Duty session-based PvP experience. So it'll have elements of what a bunch of people kind of are familiar with of different games, but all kind of mashed together into one.
Yeah, nice. And like, it's funny when you talk about Titanfall and like picturing the mechs and the scale they are, and then you're bringing that to the game. Because I don't know if you viewers at home have played Titanfall at all, but just like the feeling like Dan was describing when you get there is just like, it's like awe-inspiring how epic the battles are. I guess like the extreme examples now is like Helldiver 2, where like everything's kind of like crashing and you've got these big monsters, but
yeah,
it'll be interesting to see what you guys bring together on the table there. You do have your closed beta 3 coming up, released on June 27th. Can you let us know what players can expect from that?
Yeah, we're adding a bunch of new kind of scenarios, new zones, new PvP modes, like high value target, and we're kind of leaning a lot into more of a session based PvP feel for this closed beta, because we have such different types of game modes. We have like these open world sandbox games where it feels more like Tarkov or something, where you're really just kind of jumping in and experiencing the world. But we also have these very constrained Call of Duty or Battlefield-esque battles, which we call flashpoints. So we're leaning heavily into the flashpoints for this closed beta 3. So a couple of new zones or scenarios that people can play in, some of which are infantry only. So if you're kind of if you're a classic kind of third-person shooter or first-person shooter player, that might appeal to you a little bit more, right? So that's one of the things that we're really leaning into with MetalCore, is this idea of just we have all these bits of gameplay, but if we put them together in different ways, like an aerial only combat scenario or an infantry only scenario that's underground that vehicles can't get into, or the like everything goes scenarios, and then the different rule sets, like that's what we think the magic of the game is, and like the variety of what people are going to be able to choose to play. So we're focusing closed beta 3 particularly on PvP and on these specific new scenarios we've released.
Okay, great. So you're going to be your infantry outside of your mech participating in battles as well.
Yeah.
So could you tell us what your plans are for the Web3 integration on this side? Like right now we know there is some free to play, but we know you have big plans coming up for Web3 as well.
Yeah, so we did announce that we're releasing a token. Have not yet announced the date, although you should hear that very soon. And so the token will basically be like the premium currency in the game. So if you've played any free-to-play games, almost all of them have some form of premium currency where you can exchange you can purchase bundles of premium currency, and then that premium currency allows you to buy rare crafting ingredients or items or loadout options or whatever it is. We're going to be doing the same, right? That's the role of our token. You can also win the token via kind of placing highly in tournaments and certain leaderboards. The other aspect of Web3 that we're using heavily is NFTs. So obviously all of the units that you have in the game, they independently can be leveled up. They can be kind of kitted out with different loadouts and different boosters and modules and upgrades and etc. And all of those are eligible to be turned into NFTs and then traded on open marketplaces. So we're pretty excited about both of those big Web3 features.
Nice. Now, when it comes to like grinding in the game itself, in terms of getting up your, like you said, leveling up to those NFT mechs and things like that. So for a starter player, let's say they've got like $100 that they want to start in this game. How much grind time do you think it's going to be till their mech is where they would like ideally like it to be?
Yeah, it's a good question. So one of the things is that the ideal might change from time to time. So really we leave it up to the player to decide what they want to do. Do they want to take that $100 and split it amongst like 5 different vehicles so that they can have 5 vehicles that kind of fit every potential scenario that they're in? Like, I need an aircraft now, so I'm going to spend some resources leveling up and some of my own time leveling up this aircraft so up to kind of some medium level, right? And kind of get the spread of when I need air power, I'll have my aircraft ready. When I need, a tank or like some fast vehicle to go grab objectives or whatever, or when I need something that dominates the battlefield or something that serves as like a forward operating base or a forward spawn. All of these are available to players, right? So what type of player are you? Like, are you the type of player who loves to just specialize in one role and just pour everything into like, I'm going to be the most badass sniper on the entire battlefield, and that includes when I'm in my mech or when I'm in like on the ground, like my specialty will be dealing damage at long distances. Well, then yeah, you can pour all of your resources into that one thing, or you could spread it out kind of evenly. But we do expect players to spend quite a bit of time on their individual vehicles, kind of kitting them out the way that they want. We've had some players spending 30, 40, 50 hours leveling up just a single character.
Nice.
And then kind of maxing it out and having it be like the very best. And then it's like, okay, now you have this one character that's the very, very best, but you can only do one thing. So you should maybe move on to the next one. Or if you want, like our plan is, maybe you've spent all of that time, you're sick of being the sniper, and you're like, I want to switch to like a medic role or whatever. So now since it's an NFT, you can take that sniper character that you spent so long playing as, and you can sell it to somebody else who maybe wants to switch into that role of sniper, right? So that's kind of one of the things that we're really excited about with Web3 integration.
Nice. Yeah, that's awesome. It takes me back to like the days of like selling accounts when you weren't supposed to, so you have to go around through so many back doors, and now you'll actually be rewarded for all that grind time, and you won't have to do the back channels like the game. You have the marketplace to be able to do that. And you brought up a great example, like you do spend 2 weeks or a month grinding up this one player that you love, but then you want to try something new. It's nice that you can sell it for value and then turn that value into like the meta class or whatever you want to there. So now we're talking about different classes and things like that. This game has 3 factions. Can you let us know a little bit more about the factions and the advantage or disadvantage of joining certain ones?
Yeah, so there are 3 factions in our game. We got the Metal Punks, the Gear Breakers, and the Holy Corporation. When you start the game, you have to choose one of the factions to kind of fight for. Fictionally, when you kind of enter into the world, you start as an Earther, one of these people who came out of cryo sleep, expecting Kerberos to be this like utopia, but realizing that there's been these 3 factions fighting on the planet for like 200 years before you woke up, and now you have to pick a side because there's no utopia here, right? So the metal punks are kind of like classic anarchists. The gear breakers are more kind of like despotic, believe it a little bit more in like strength and honor, but no mercy. And the Holy Corporation, they're all about kind of loyalty and faith and that sort of thing. So kind of whatever kind of drives you in terms of like what appeals to you most about those factions would probably drive your initial choice. But it does really matter which faction you pick, because ultimately we plan to be introducing faction wars, and with the faction wars, this like meta game of conquering the surface. Like, who do you want to ally yourself with? It's really more about the people who are on that side, and whether you feel like you can ally with them, trust them, fight with them. Whether they're like good players, right? And can help you win that territory war. Because with that faction territory war that will have like these seasonal wars, that'll just be like a huge bonus to the people who lead the top of that leaderboard.
Yeah, and I assume if it's once a season type tournament, you're going to get a lot more hype, and there's probably going to be some prize pools and some unique things that players can expect as well, hey?
Yeah, exactly.
Nice. When is the game going to be more into that open beta where we could start seeing these seasons?
So probably end of the year. So we're thinking kind of nice. end of 2024, maybe like slipping into early 2025, depending on exact timing. But we are trying to grow responsibly right now. We're trying to kind of get only as many players in as our servers can support, our economy can support. We don't want to get to the point where people are playing the game and having a bad time because the servers are crashing and there's just not enough slots for them and stuff like that. So we're growing slowly.
That's good. That's smart. And it's nice that it's only 6 months away. I mean, it could be a little more than 6 months, but it's coming pretty soon. Especially you guys have to build it. It's like nose to the grindstone now, hey?
Yeah, exactly. I wish we had more time, but we've got a really solid closed beta 3 right now, and so we're really close on a lot of these features. Really, it's just a matter of time. We have to just spend time polishing all the bugs, making it super competitive, and then just ensuring that all of the features work the way you would expect kind of a modern, big multiplayer game to work, with nice lobbies and friend-based matchmaking and all that stuff. All that stuff is like, it takes time. They're not super complicated features, but it's just time consuming to develop. Yeah, for sure. Now, in terms of like gameplay modes and things like that, can you let us know a little bit about the plans for PvE and PvP? Yeah, so we basically have 3 different types of scenario types in our game. One of which we call flashpoints. So those are essentially just PvP session-based experiences. They're timed. They last anywhere from 20 to 30 minutes. You can think of them kind of like a Battlefield session or a Call of Duty session, where a bunch of players queue in for a lobby. They enter a battle. It takes place over a certain amount of time with certain objectives. One team wins, the other team loses. The team that won gets a bunch of rewards, and we're going to have ranked PvP as well. So that's going to be one of the big leaderboards in the way that people can kind of win seasonal prizes, is topping those ranked PvP leaderboards. We have our second mode, which we call kind of open mode, is PvX, is what we call it. It's PvP, but also PvE. So there's AI roaming around. There's also players. All 3 factions are on. It's kind of open-ended. It's more of a sandboxy game mode. So you're going to get random missions that take you into enemy territory. These are dynamically generated, like AI-generated missions that we have, where the AI figures out, like, hey, how do we get the right conflicts in order so that people are having fun, spawn the right AI, send you to like this enemy base. You as a player might be like, let's say you're a metal punk and you and your squad are sent to a base with a quest for like repair the generators here, and it's a friendly base. Your gear, there's going to be a gear breaker squad that's sent on a mission to say, go there and destroy the generators, right? So you're going to be put into like these random conflict missions around the world, but it's going to feel very organic. It's not going to feel like session based. It's going to feel like things are just happening, and it's like an active conflict zone, and you have no idea what's going to happen next, but you can kind of choose to engage in that or just roam around and find people and kill AI and grind and do whatever you want. So that's our second mode. Our third mode would be PvE specific. We're going to call that raid mode, and that will feel a lot more like it'll be you queuing with a bunch of allies all on the same team, and it'll feel a lot more like a Helldivers mission, right? Like where you're jumping in and it's just hordes and hordes of enemies, and you have maybe some objective, but there's just huge bosses coming at you that you have to take out, and that takes place over a certain period of time. Very cool. What was the name of the second mode again? the PVX mode that we're just calling that kind of like open
PVX
mode, because there's no like beginning and end to the session. You just kind of jump in and play for as long as you want. The other two modes, the PvP only and PvE, are kind of session-based, timed experiences.
Yeah. So I was just kind of curious about that. So it's like you're jumping into an open world. There's no time limit. There's just going to be other players, and you're going to get random missions unlocked that you can participate in?
Exactly, yeah. And the random missions are AI generated based on the state of the world, what other people are doing, like what's happening around and what you've previously done in the world. So like we have all these interesting kind of setups with different like mission packages that can be put together, and kind of our idea is to develop the system where it almost creates a narrative sense of like if you were a real like Delta Squad or something like that in this world, you're being sent on these different missions by some handler that make kind of contiguous narrative sense, where like, okay, you're sabotaging the generators, and the reason you had to do that is because we needed that base dark so that we could fly our aircraft over it and get to this other thing, which is then like these kind of chain sequences of things, right? So we're trying to create that experience in the open mode.
So yeah, so you have like just marathon sessions, just like when you play GTA for like 10 hours and you're like, where did the time go? It's going to be like that kind of mode, hey?
Yeah, we hope so, yeah.
One thing in terms of customization, in terms of leveling up like Call of Duty, you have to level up your weapons and then you can get elite skins and things like that. Will you have that kind of component into this game as well with the NFTs and different unlocks?
Yeah, so you have to, once you craft a unit, whether it's a mech or a tank or an individual infantry suit, you have to play with it to level it up. The individual unit gains XP. So as you level it up, you unlock its different loadout slots, and you unlock. So for instance, a light infantry suit at level 1 would have kind of a locked loadout, but once you get to level 10, you would unlock its primary weapon slot, and you'd gain the ability to equip both like light machine guns and SMGs. Right, and then at level 20, you might unlock the ability to also equip shotguns. So once you're able to do that, your loadout options like increase, and as you find those loadout items in the world, once you find a combat shotgun and you level your infantry to level 20, you can now equip that combat shotgun onto that infantry and kind of play around with it. So very similar. All of the items are found in the world, and this is all basically just grinding. We'll sell like XP boosts for your units, and we have premium membership tiers that we'll also have, so that if you want kind of that boost to grinding, we can give it to you. But yeah, so very similar to games like Battlefield or Call of Duty.
Nice. It would be great to see those instances played out over time and grinding up. I can see some players just coming into a lobby that they're not ready for and having to go back to like the PvE or something like that. Now, in some trailer action and watching some other YouTube videos on the game, we hear about baronies. Can you let us know a little bit more about how that is coming into the gameplay?
Yeah, so barony is our term for kind of an in-game guild. And, guilds are a big deal in Web3. So our idea, and basically their objective, guilds in Web3, mainly what they want to do is form communities of players and drive their engagement to different products and et cetera. And that really overlaps pretty well with what the role of a guild is in an actual game, right? So we wanted to represent that in game in a way that actually had an impact on gameplay, in a way that that kind of merge those two, the motivations of the out of game guilds with what you would have as a person who is engaging in the economy of MetalCore, right? So we our baronies are basically in-game guilds that are and they can become essentially premium baronies, and when they turn into premium baronies, they're the means by which players who hold a lot of NFTs and can't necessarily use all of those NFTs to like farm leaderboard entry, or farm up the leaderboard and earn as much as they can in terms of MCG. They're able to lend their NFTs to their baronies, and the baronies, the members of the barony are actually the ones who can play with those NFTs and like help the owner of the barony. So it's basically the scholar system that you would see in Axie. So if you're collecting a ton of NFTs, some people are collecting like hundreds of NFTs, right? And there's just no way that you can play with all of those every day. And we have these daily missions that the NFTs are essentially used in, and you just physically can't play that many daily missions in a day. So you can recruit members of your barony in order to do that for you, and that's the main feature we have there. Okay, so similar to like Axie Infinity NFT owners, in this case, if you were a person who was more like
you didn't have time to game a lot, but you liked the vibe of it and you were more on the investor side, you could build up your arsenal of NFTs and then have other people use them on your behalf, and then you kind of just like split the profits between you guys?
Exactly. Yeah, that's how it works.
Okay, great. Now, when it comes to the future of the game, we're hearing of new game modes like capture the flag and things like that. Is that coming up soon, or is that much more in the further future?
Yeah, so we're adding a ton of new objectives to our PvP session-based modes, and you'll see some of those in Closed Beta 3, but we want to add even more of those later on. Nice. So we want the kind of PvP session-based modes to function almost like this. To function almost like this thing where it randomizes the objectives. So you might have 3 different objectives in a single PvP session, but those 3 objectives could be like deathmatch and also capture the flag and also control points. Or it could be like 2 control points and 1 capture the flag. And like depending on how they're randomized with one another, your team strategy might be completely different, right? Like if it's 3 capture the flags, then it's gonna like everybody's gonna be like, oh my god, let's all get our fastest units and just shuffle them back and forth to the base as much as we can. Whereas if it's all control points, you might be like, well, let's break our heavies out so we can camp on these points, right? So that'll significantly change how you approach each battle and kind of push players to want to increase the kind of breadth of their garage and their number of units, as opposed to just focusing on really just one thing. But even in addition to that, we're thinking of introducing not just new game modes, but actually just new game experiences. So this MetalCore like hardcore PC console game that we're developing, that's not the only game that we envision in the MetalCore universe. We're actually actively in development on a kind of a more of an idle strategy game, and we're thinking about a bunch more in the future as well. So we want MetalCore to have something for every type of player out there.
Nice. And from everything I'm hearing so far, it's so interesting because it's not just specific static game modes. I feel like we've talked about 3 game modes for this, and then within more game modes, there's more game modes. Everything just like feels so dynamic, and there's different ways to class and set up your mechs, and there's different skill sets. So it seems like you could go down a really big rabbit hole with this game, and kind of like endless fun and enjoyment. And with the NFTs as well, whether you want to be grinding and borrowing NFTs or renting NFTs, it seems like there's just so much to this game. So how can people get involved, maybe participate? Is it too late to get into this closed beta on June 27th, or?
You can. There's still spots available. We're still restricting access to Closed Beta 3. If you visit our website at metalcore.gg, you'll be able to see where you can get access. There is a wait list, but the number of waitlist spots that get sent out is relatively minimal. So we're also starting to sell founders packs for guaranteed access to the remainder of Closed Beta 3. If you for sure want to get in during Closed Beta before the end of the year, then you can get one of these founders packs, which will give you some nice vehicles and starter kit, so that you're not starting out at ground zero, and then you can you also get a key to access the game early during Closed Beta.
Okay, great. That sounds awesome. So you guys heard it here from Dan. Make sure you head on over to their website, leave a founders pack, do us a favor, get involved in this closed beta, and then when you finish that, head on over to fungible.games and leave your honest review, because we'd love to hear about this game. As you can tell from this interview, everything sounds amazing. So Dan, thank you so much for coming on, and we'll make sure people head on over to the website and play it, and we definitely will too.